So, back again with another episode. Welcome back to Gaming TI. We got another episode for you today. I'm Imani.
And I'm Tristan. And today we're going to be talking about a topic that we found to be interesting in the last couple of weeks. We've been discussing like what makes a game dead. We've been kind of like discussing like dead games and you know what really makes a game dead, you know? And
Yep.
like to talk about this, we're obviously going to be referring to mostly online multiplayer games, I think. Would that be fair?
Yeah, I mean, I think so. I think like it's very hard to talk about dead games that are like single player games. Yeah, it's very hard to get like a proper consensus with that, because I feel like there are some games that probably die not too long after release that are single player games just because people beat the story mode. But then you always have the people who buy
Who go
the
back
game
and play
later
it
that's when
over.
it's on. True, and when who go back and it's like the way I see it is like maybe the game goes on sale and somebody who didn't get it before now decides to go and get it.
Yeah,
So
but
it's hard to judge that with anything other than multiplayer games, right?
but there are single player games that do require you for some bizarre reason to have an online connection. So I guess those games are kind of included as well.
Yeah, I'm trying to think
Because
why.
like I'm thinking back to a game like 2K17, NBA 2K17. I
Never
believe
really played the 2Ks, but I'm a listen.
yeah, for some strange reason, they 2K, well, not a strange reason actually, to prevent people from torrenting the game, they made it
Uh,
like necessary for you to make a online profile to get like the full. You could still play the single player mode, but to get like the full single player experience, you need to make an online account and connect that account in game. So, like for after a
Interesting.
while, that game's like the servers just died, and even though you paid $60 for the full game, you still can't enjoy the full experience simply because the servers aren't functional anymore. And
Uh,
yeah,
that's
and then they took that
that's
a
very
step.
weird.
Yeah, it's weird. And then they took it a step further with 2K20. It's impossible to play the single player mode on 2K20 without first connecting your online account. So yeah.
It's EA, right?
No,
EA made
that's
the 2Ks?
no, that's 2K.
Just 2K. Okay, 2K is its own thing. Gotcha. Did not. Again, I don't play enough 2K to know.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. That sounds like an EA thing to me.
Sounds very EA. Sounds like a very
Yeah,
EA practice. I'm not sure because I haven't played FIFA offline for a while, but I don't know if that's the same
if that's
thing
the
with
same
FIFA.
deal.
I don't think it is though. I don't think it is.
I would
But
hope
FIFA
not.
has its own problems.
Actually, before we do jump into the that game topic, that reminded me of something that I wanted to talk about. So we had Facebook with Facebook Connect, last month, and the Oculus Quest 2 came out this week. Of course, your boys got one,
Of
and
course.
it's been an enjoyable experience for the most part. But again, we have the whole, and we spoke about this before, the log in with Facebook thing, right?
Yeah.
Now, I hope Facebook doesn't find this video because the thing is, I have now 3 Facebook accounts, right? Don't ask why. But I made
You know,
one
one for the
specific like
main girls, and the others for the side pieces. Yeah, I got you. Yeah.
I complicated situation, right? But I had 2 Facebook accounts and I created a third one just because I didn't want to connect my main Facebook account to my headset. So it's a good thing I did it like right when they announced the Quest 2 cuz like I literally created the account like I think the same day as the announcement. I was just like, "Oh, I have to connect it. I'll just create another account." It's a good thing I did that because there are people who got the Quest and there are some people who genuinely didn't have a Facebook account who then went and created a Facebook account so they can, log in and,
Actually use their product. Yeah.
use the product. Yeah.
Yeah.
And Facebook kind of has went on this ban wave where like newly created accounts and stuff suddenly got banned. And the thing
I'm
is,
sure that's a coincidence.
yeah, it's and you see, like, so here's why this is a huge problem, because there's people who had Oculus accounts before, right? So they might have had the Quest 1 or any of the past Oculus devices, and they bought and purchased their games through that account. So when you link your Facebook account, you're actually linking it with your Oculus account if you already had a pre-existing Oculus account. Um, and what happened is, so for the people who've done that and then got their account banned, they've lost access to all of their games that they've bought and stuff over the years or however long they've had their account.
Well, that's not good.
Yeah,
What are they doing about that?
nothing yet. I mean, like
Solid.
it's so here's what happened, right? The fact is that, like, since you've got like banned and locked out of your account, you can't even go on to the account to make a complaint because it's like you got locked out of your account. So it's like
It's a catch
a lot of
22.
people were in this like limbo, right?
Yeah.
And then Oculus, tweeted out like, okay, if you're having problems, use this link, and we'll try to assist you as best as we can. Blah 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 blah. But
Okay.
this is one of the problems that I had initially with Facebook demanding this linking of Facebook and Oculus accounts, right?
Yeah.
Was the fact that Facebook now controls, like, so that means if you get banned on Facebook for almost any other reason, your Oculus account technically gets banned too.
Yeah. Yeah.
So they have this like very unhealthy hold over you, and you basically now,
And it's
if you
for
bought a Quest 2, you could buy a brick because you
exactly.
know
And that's like practices like that I hate because
mhm,
you basically pay a lot of money for, well, I mean, yeah, sure, it's not a Ferrari, but it's not an insignificant amount of money that you
no,
pay for a product, and then they're still asking you to do more before you can use your product. They're still
it's almost like you don't own your product.
exactly. You don't own this product until you could give us your data.
Yeah,
And
yep,
like Nvidia does the same thing with their graphics card. Like you could buy a $1,200 2080 Ti. You're still gonna have to log in to your and create an Nvidia account in order to
right,
install the drivers for that card. It's a shitty practice, and
yeah.
hopefully more people speak up to against this practice so that it could like go away.
I would hope so. I mean, the thing is, like the thing with Facebook especially too is, and what messes things up is the fact that a lot of games in VR become much more lively and much more and just much better when you mod them. And
Mm,
now this is kind of like a direct, and like the game that I will always say is like an icon for VR and also an icon for like how great modding can make a game is Beat Saber.
mm-hmm,
And like we already know the issues with copyrighted music and like music in general these days on platforms, on all kinds of platforms. We're talking about Twitch, YouTube, all of that. And now that Facebook is involved and they have your account linked to something, it becomes very like questionable, like, oh, am I allowed to mod this now? Like, can they track this?
yeah,
They
it's like
probably
big
could.
big brothers looking at you all
Yeah,
the
and
time.
it's really uncomfortable.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah.
but in good news, Beat Saber did get a huge update. We finally have multiplayer in the sense of like you're actually playing like in the same environment as other players. Like obviously before we've had like scoreboards and stuff, which have been great. But like now, I hop in and it's real multiplayer. Like, there's like 5 lanes and like it's kind of like in a star-shaped pattern kind of thing, like somebody's over there, and we're all playing the same song at the same time. So it was kind of a surreal experience to go and jump into Beat Saber, pull up a Linkin Park song because they do have an official pack on Beat Saber, and play these songs with 4 other people, or play against 4 other people, like with some of these great songs. And
It's like how
It
does that work? Like, is there like a vote system, or is there like
yeah,
a vote system to
it's
choose a
it's
song?
like a vote system for like it's like a when when you get into like a lobby, you actually see like there's like four other people in a circle, and you can like look over at each other and wave and stuff, and then you could pick songs from the list, and then it's like queued up, and then I honestly still don't understand how the queue works because you would think it's like, okay, if five people have different songs, then it's just gonna randomly pick one of them.
Mm-hmm.
But then there have been cases where it's like, all right, two people have the same song, the other three people have different songs, and you would think, okay, it would pick the most popular one, the one that has two people voting for it, right? And it's like, no, sometimes it would just pick one of the other songs. And I'm just like, okay, I guess that's fine.
That's the Facebook algorithm, right? That's why you
That's what
work
they
with Facebook,
specialize
right?
in.
You know?
But it's been an awesome experience. I've really liked it. It's really pushed me actually in terms of like before it's like I thought I played like Beat Saber hard. It's like, nah, you don't know how hard you play until you have like competition, next to you, and it's like, ah, nah, I want to whoop your ass.
Yeah.
So I mean, I think that's a solid example of a game that is now quite lively, and I would say the opposite of dead.
Yeah,
I saw that
but like
transition.
on that transition, right? What makes that game lively and not dead? Like, because a lot of people use the like the active player count
Right.
to say like a lot of people like have this idea that if a game has less than 10,000 players, then it's dead.
And that's kind of like from what at least, Master Google has taught me. That's kind of like the definition that some people use, like less than 10,000 active players is considered a dead game. I don't think 10,000 is a
10,000
large number.
active players? Like
That's a
10,000,
large
that's a
number.
lot of like that's
Like think about it like this. If there was
it depends on the game.
a Facebook group that had 10,000 people in it, that's not a small group.
That's not a small group. But I would say it heavily depends on the game. Because 10,000 players in active players at least in a battle royale game that has 60 to 100 people, yeah,
Yeah.
that's not good. You're gonna wait a long time to get a game.
Yeah.
But like
Yeah.
10,000 active players in like a PvP, like maybe like a 4v4, like something like Rogue Company,
Right. That's a sizable amount of people.
that's a good amount of
You
people.
get some decent queues there. Queue time shouldn't be too long.
I don't
And
think you would notice longer queue times if that game had, like, if that game went from a game having like 100,000 active players to only having 10,000. I don't think you notice that difference.
I think the conversation also changes a bit when we talk about regions, because if it's 10,000 players spread across the entire world, that's not big. That's quite small,
Hmm.
and like let's split the world into what, like three or four regions. You have
Usually the regions are like any North America and
mm-hmm,
South America, Europe,
mm-hmm,
Asia, and Oceanic. So that's like Asia, Australia, New Zealand,
Australia, all of those, yeah.
and
And
I think
that's
that's
just for
it.
latency reasons, just because. And so yeah, it's about four or five of them, right?
Yeah,
And that's just for latency reasons because you don't want to be playing in a server that's in, I don't know, Japan, and you have a ping of 900.
yeah,
It's like that's when you click, it's going to take the server a full second to
to
register
get
that
it.
click.
Yeah, 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 yeah.
And
That's not good.
depending on the type of games that you play, especially with FPS games, a full second is about as
That's
good
not
as
gonna
being
work.
dead.
That's not gonna work.
That's instant death. And like
Yeah.
obviously even you, like with your experience with Valorant has been,
Yep.
you know your ping hasn't been anywhere near that, but the game is basically unplayable.
It's unplayable, which is fine because I don't want to play the game anyway, right? You
even
hear that,
even
right?
after getting into the closed beta, and
I don't need to play the game anyway. So have your
oh
game.
man.
Don't. Anyway, that's like that's that's for our
That should
next
be its own
episode.
rant.
That's a I don't want to get into that. Anyway,
Oh man. But yeah, I think regions heavily depend. So it's like 10,000 player, for example, in North America. Um, Probably depending on the game, is healthy. I don't think 10,000 players in a game like again like a battle royale like Call of Duty or something is that's although I feel like
Nah, I think
Call
10.
of Duty wouldn't have 10,000 players in
Yeah,
it.
yeah, yeah. I don't think like 10,000 players in Call of Duty. You see, okay, again, like back to the region argument,
Mm.
you'd have to say in my experience, and this is like no facts whatsoever. This is just
Completely objective.
this is just a feeling, but
Uh-huh.
I have a feeling that North America and Europe are the most like they're the most populated regions when it comes to gamers. Like usually,
I'd
use
fight that. I would fight that.
like what region? What region would have like the volume? Like
I
t-
would say Asia, man. I feel like
Asia?
China alone has a ridiculous amount of gamers, man.
Yeah, but they're like in that region, you find they have their own games a lot of the times. So like they'll
But
have their own like CS:GO type game, and
right, right.
like for example a game like I think it's called Black Squad. That was like a popular game in Korea and like China and like that in the Asian region for a while.
Okay, so we're talking about like basically like Western games.
Yeah, I'm talking like let's say a game like Overwatch. Right? Like
Okay.
yeah, yes, okay, that's a bad example because Overwatch is huge in China.
Yeah, I mean it's like yeah, and you can't say something like League either.
No, 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 no. But like let's say a game like I don't know, what's like a competitive game that
I
isn't.
guess I'm gonna say something maybe like if we're gonna go back into the battle royale, we could say something like Apex, and for example, they have their own version of PUBG.
Yeah, 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 yeah. Yeah, that's a good example. So let's say a game like that, I don't think they have as much players in that region. Like they're gonna have a lot of players, right?
Right, right.
But I think they're still gonna have like a, again, no facts. It's probably split like close to a third US, close to a third in Europe, maybe more because Europe is just a bigger region. And
Mm,
then like close to like another like maybe like a quarter in Asia.
right.
That's what no facts. No facts whatsoever.
I think
What do you think about
so.
those numbers?
I'd say for a game like we're saying for a game like Apex in those kind of regions, I would say I could see the split being about that. Yeah.
Right?
Although I would probably say, gosh, we're getting into some complicated fractions here. But like I'm thinking
That
like,
we have
you're definitely
no
gonna
figures
have
to back up
no,
whatsoever.
absolutely no figures to back it up. But let me use some percentages instead, right? Let's say 25% North America. So I'm gonna say both that's Canada, US and like Mexico, for example.
Are you
Um,
including because like I'm including everyone that plays in that has to play on US servers as well. So like for instance,
oh
I'm
yeah,
in the
so like
Caribbean, I
Caribbean,
have to play on the
right.
US servers. There are some places in Central and South America that don't have
That
their
have
own
to
servers.
so they have
And
to play on like the like southern type of servers because sometimes you have like Texas servers and stuff.
yeah, there's like Texas servers and like US like East servers like Miami and stuff like that.
Yeah, like southeast. Yeah.
Yeah. So
I would count, yeah, so I'm gonna count all of that, but then what I'll do is I'll probably bump it up to like actually no, I'll keep it at 25%. So like my breakdown would be 25% North America, and that's all of those, different like little patches that have to use American servers. I'm gonna say maybe about like 25 to 30% for Europe, right? Because I mean Europe is big, right? We're literally talking, the entire known Euro. We're talking, Britain, Germany, all of those places. But
yeah,
we're also
all
talking
those
about
places.
some of like
A
the
lot of
places that are a bit more obscure, like Ukraine. Like a
yeah,
lot of
all
places
those
where people
places.
might not think is Europe. Like we were playing with this one guy from Czech Republic, right?
Yeah.
And it's like,
I think people know the Czech Republic is in Europe.
well,
But
yeah,
I get
but
what you're saying. I
I'm
get
just
what you're
saying, like,
saying.
like more obscure countries that actually you'll be surprised how many of people, at least Americans, like I feel like there's a lot of Americans who don't know anything outside of America, right? Some of them don't even know anything outside their own state.
Yeah, no comments on that. But I would add like probably like in parts of Africa, they'll have to play on European servers as well.
So then I would say definitely like I'd say probably 30 to 35%, right?
Yeah.
Um of a game, of a Western games population might be Europe. And then I feel like there would be there's actually a sizable chunk that is also in the oceanic areas. So we're talking about
Yeah, because it's a
Australia,
big
New
region. Yeah.
Zealand. Exactly. Because it's still very much a Western culture. So you do have a lot of the Western releases and stuff happening. They definitely like indulge in them.
Yeah.
So I'm gonna give them another like about, I'd say maybe 20 to 25%. So if we add all of those percentages up, I'm gonna use the higher ones. 20, 25, 25, that's 50, and then 35, 25 is 85. And I'd say maybe about, yeah, it's gonna be about 15 to 20%. That's like that's Asia, but it really depends on the game because again, a game like Overwatch can be very popular over there. But then a game like
Mm-hmm.
Apex, there's like just alternatives to
To
those
it. Like
games.
yeah. Yeah. And like why I brought up like the player numbers is because usually when a game is like dying, when like players are leaving, you would
Yeah.
find that players in the most like just because of like statistics and mathematics and science and stuff, because I know that stuff, right? I know science. You find that the players from the most populated regions, uh, they would still have players at the end, right? So they'll
Yeah.
and you usually find like in dead games, like quote in air quotes dead games, that people are still playing. So how are they dead, really? But anyway, you'll still you'll see
We'll
people
we'll define that better later.
you'll see people in like in the NA servers and like the European servers and stuff. In my experience, well, I don't really have experience with this, but I don't really see a lot of people. Actually, I kind of do have experience on this because I see
Yeah, I
like
was gonna say it seems like you do.
when
Although I can't say that it's a dead game because then somebody's gonna get offended. You feel me?
the game is dead. Anyway, like usually what I find is that when a game is dying, that people in that Asia and Oceanic region,
Hmm.
they don't stick around. They don't play it.
Yeah, they
Like
they disappear quite quickly.
I think that's probably because like especially like in the Korean like the Korean players, they're not gonna stick around and play a dead game because they're trying to go pro. A lot of them are trying to go pro because that's a
There's no worth. There's no value in it.
yeah. Yeah. And like a lot of the competitive shooters, like once they get a hint that that game is dying, there's just gonna be a mass exodus. Like you saw that a bit with in Overwatch League. Like Overwatch is not by any means a dead game, but
No.
a lot of the pro players saw like a lot of things that they didn't like, and they thought that the pro scene was probably gonna die because of it.
Hmm.
So they just left and went to like Apex. And then when they saw Apex Pro scene wasn't that great, they just left and went to Valorant. So
Yeah.
I don't think players in that region stick around that much when a game is like fading a bit. So
And maybe that's like a cultural thing because like I guess there's like a cultural difference in the value of gaming is I guess what I would call it, right?
yeah.
And maybe in again, I don't want to generalize here and I don't want to like stereotype, but maybe in Western cultures, it's games are it's a hobby, it's like fun, right?
Mm-hmm.
And but in Asian cultures, it's become a case of like games are like they're a career path.
Yeah.
They're
Yeah.
a sport, and people take them seriously as such. And I'm not saying you can't it's not that you can't have fun playing a sport, but a lot of the times when you're playing something like competitively and seriously, the fun gets sucked right out of it. You're
Mm,
playing it for a completely different reason.
yep.
So it's like if for example, like with you and Dirty Bomb, right? That's the game that um, I guess we'd both consider a dead game, but it still has a somewhat active player base, with private servers and so on.
Yeah.
And you still play it now and then, you stream it, and you get people who watch the streams, right? People who come in and still say, hey,
Yeah, there's still
hey man,
people.
I
There's still
like this
people
game.
interested in the game. There's still
Yeah.
like I look at my Steam friends list, and there's people that have like upwards of 20 plus hours in the past 2 weeks just on that game.
And that is a dead game, right?
Yeah.
And the thing about it is they're playing that for not the pro scene. They're not playing that for, they're not using it like aim labs. They're playing that because they like the game and it's fun. But oftentimes you won't find our a lot I'm not gonna say all of them, but a lot of our Asian gaming counterparts in Asiatic regions who would like still do that. It's kind of like I'm just gonna move on.
Yeah, they just move on to something else.
Right.
I guess that's a good point. They really don't see like gaming as they kind of see it as more of a job than a hobby, like a career than a hobby.
Now I'm sure you do get the people who do
Yeah,
see it
not
as
everyone's pro, right?
yeah, but the thing is, I think like what happens is again because a lot of the pros and a lot of the competitive people leave the community, like it gets smaller, like that. Like I don't think like a lot of people might not realize how many more people, competitive people bring to the game in terms of people who watch some of these people on YouTube and all of these other sites, and they get them interested into the game, right? So it's like when a lot of them leave and content for that game is not being made and published as often, starts to kind of die a little bit, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's kind of like it's like one of the stages of death.
Yeah,
It's like,
that
once you have the big creators leave, it's kind of like, oh well, you
yeah.
might have the core base, but you're starting to lose some of those fringe
You
members, right?
stand to you know what's a big thing with that? You stand to lose free, easy, well, not free, but easy marketing, because
Yeah.
and that's like a big reason why in Overwatch, the Overwatch team basically out and out said that they took an entire year, stopped developing the game, and the game suffered because of it,
Right.
just
Right.
to focus on developing the esports side of things.
Right.
So like while the game was suffering, the esport thrived, and the just like having that esport thrive brought in like more players for them, and then now they can like go back and like fix the stuff that they should have been fixing, and
In the first place.
yeah, and then they just like kind of have that cycle of a healthy game and a healthy esport scene, and that just keeps bringing
Right.
in new players. So yeah, that definitely plays a factor in whether
And
a
I think one
game
of the
is
most
dead or not.
recent examples that we can like almost definitively say um streamers and just people who create content for the game has caused the game to like expand wildly among us.
Yeah, great
Like
example.
if
Yeah.
I were to ask 90% of people who play Among Us now, I'll say 95% of people who play Among Us now today, did you know about this game 2 months ago? They'll be like, "No,
Nah,
never heard of it." I've
never.
heard about games like it,
Yeah, but
Mafia and so on, but I've never heard about this game specifically.
yeah, like I remember like a few years ago, someone was asking me to play Deceit, but I didn't have like a computer that could run it. Deceit is like a very similar game, but I think it's like more monster or zombie based. Uh,
Okay.
to Among Us, it's a 3D game,
Okay, right,
and
right.
like I was surprised when I saw that Deceit and Among Us came out very close to each other. Like,
Yeah. I
yeah,
honestly thought Among Us was new.
I thought it was
I
new.
really did.
I really did. Yeah, I
I
thought it
thought it
was
was like,
new.
okay, it's a good new game, quarantine Like they heard they knew quarantine was coming. They were like, all right, we have 3 months. Let's throw something together,
That's
guys.
just okay. I'm not trying to hate on the game or anything like that, but it looks like a game that someone could shoot together in three
I mean,
months.
the
I
funny
mean, the
thing is, I
servers
think it was
definitely
developed by like 5 people, right?
really
Yeah, it's a very small dev team. I think it's
okay.
like, and I'm talking when I say like developed, I'm talking about like that's including like the 2 artists. So I think like it's honestly like a team in total of like about 5 people. And this game came out literally June 15, 2018. So it's a little over 2 years.
Yeah.
So actually,
Hmm.
that's one thing I want to ask. So what do you think about games that kind of are I'm gonna relate Among Us to a game. It's not, but like a game that's DOA, like Dead on Arrival, but now it
Like
has this big
lawbreakers.
resurrection
Oh. Oh.
because
Okay.
it's kind of like a reverse, right?
Yeah.
Because now, like
You
a
see,
lot of the times, the cycle of game death is like, oh, extreme popularity at release, and then it's like steady decline, or like extreme popularity, steady like popularity, and then like a big decline.
you see the thing with that. I think like when we get into that, we kind of have to define that, like what makes a game dead. Like we really need to have a definition of it
A
because
definition of it, yeah.
for you to say a game is dead on arrival, what does that mean? Does that mean like it doesn't have as much players as Fortnite does? Because nothing does.
Yeah, and that's the question because I think like it's not like Among Us was played, but I would say the amount of people like definitely less than 1 million, definitely less than 100,000 people played.
Definitely not less than how much is playing now.
Yeah, we're talking about
Like
like a fraction of the people who are playing now were playing before.
yeah,
I'd say probably a few 10,000 people were probably playing Among Us.
that's
I say,
generous.
yeah, like I'd say that's a lot.
Yeah.
I'd say like
We could
there's
probably
probably
get the
like
numbers actually. Let me
I
get on
don't
that.
know,
Let me get that for you.
yeah,
But probably not the total numbers, but at least the Steam numbers. Uh
because they do keep they do keep track of that, right?
yeah. That's
So wow,
on the
yeah,
Steam
I'm
charts.
seeing peak players in
In the
like you start
last
to see
well look at oh my god.
these are low numbers. So
Look at
November 2018,
there were
19 peak players.
there were 4 people playing in March 2019, bro. There were
Yeah,
4 people playing, and that's an average for the month. That's average for the month. Four
yeah.
people playing.
But I'm gonna talk about the peak numbers, but like for example, even at the start of this year, right? We're talking January 2020.
Mm.
We're talking peak players of 271, average players of 117, right? And then you have September, where everything like August changed things. You start to get into the thousands in May. That's obviously where we're mid quarantine there. Where everybody's in quarantine zone. It's like, all right, what do we do? We start getting thousand peak players. Then June you start getting 2,000, almost 3,000. July that's like doubling, and then you have this like insane like quantum leap from 6,700 peak players in July to 73,000 peak players in August.
Yeah,
And then
that's when all the servers were crashing.
yeah, and that's when they were getting some real stress. So, I mean, this is a game where I could say like if no matter what our definition for dead game is, this qualifies. It has to because if our definition for dead game is less than 1,000 people,
I I wouldn't say less than 1,000 either. Like I still wouldn't
if
say
you say
less than
less
a
than 100,
thousand.
it's still dead game, bro. Like the
Okay,
only way this is not dead game is if you say less than 10.
no, no, no. I think a game could still be alive with 10 players. And
Ooh,
here's why. And here's why.
all right.
Because not every game requires a lot of players. some games, like there are a lot of arena shooters that only requires two players. There's a lot of arena shooters where the main mode is 1v1. And in a
Okay.
game like that, you would have people using, like you may have like 20 people playing against each other constantly. That game is alive to them. So does that mean that game is dead? The servers are still up. And if other players want to join, just like in Among Us, if other players see the popular, like see someone streaming the game or something like that and say, I think this is fun, and they start playing the game, does that mean the game was dead and then it was now alive because people were still playing it? For me, as someone who
Mhm.
actually, like, there is a game that I know is like completely dead, like you cannot play it, and that's like a Blacklight Retribution. It was actually like when I was thinking about doing this episode, I remember that Dirty Bomb actually wasn't my first FPS. It was Blacklight Retribution. I
Okay.
played that game for like a couple of weeks before I played Dirty Bomb, and the only reason I stopped is because there was some like heavy, heavy pay to win models in the game. Like you bought weapons with like basically real money,
Uh,
and the bought weapons were just better.
I
Like
mean,
I think like
it
you
was a
could,
case of like if you literally pay to win.
yeah,
If you paid
you
to buy
paid
this weapon, then you win.
it was before the Fortnite days. Fortnite made every free to play game need to have to shape up and like have to like actually like be on their shit because there was actually a good free to play game to play.
Right.
That
There
wasn't
was a
pay
good
to win.
foundation there that wasn't pay to win.
Yeah. So yeah, and like that game was besides the pay to win model, the game was fine. The gameplay was fine. It was like it's not amazing or anything. It was a decent game.
Right.
And a few months after I first played the game, like I tried like loading up just to like just to play for old time's sake. I couldn't play
Hmm.
because there were no servers. There were like literally no servers. You couldn't play the game. That's
So then,
dead.
I feel like that means there's another layer that we have to add in because I guess dead game can also be referred to as discontinued by developers. So that's like a forcibly dead game. It's kind of like even
Dirty
if
Bomb
we
was
wanted
discontinued
players,
by developers, but there's still
right,
people playing. Like,
right, but that's because they allowed servers to be used, right?
yeah, 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 that's true.
But like if it, like there are some games that like games can also become dead because of forced obsolescence, right? So it's like or forced obsolescence, however you would like pronounce
Yeah,
that,
yeah,
right?
yeah, yeah.
But like we're talking about a developer who's like, okay, we're creating the next game, so obviously we're
Like,
gonna
the incremental updates, like COD and stuff.
yeah. So it's like I like COD, but the funny thing is COD is also funny because there are definitely COD games that a lot of people
Yeah,
prefer
people,
over
yeah, just
others.
identify them, and so they just keep playing it forever.
They keep playing it,
So,
but
like
like
a good example would probably be Battlefield. Like
yes,
the old
actually,
Battlefields aren't supported anymore.
yeah. So it's kind of like one of those cases where it's like, all right, on to the next one.
Mm,
And then they just kind of like flip the switch on maybe not the last game, but like the game that came before the last game. And it's like they're just forcing people to move up because they're kind of like forcing a transition of player base. So it's like they're literally kind of like killing their own game in order to
yeah,
make room for the
it's a
newborn,
new
right?
game. Yeah, to make you spend $60 again.
Again, right?
Yeah.
And sometimes that works out, sometimes it doesn't. So it's like I guess what I'm saying is like there's really a lot of aspects of like game death, right? Why is this thing okay, cool. Um there's really like a lot of aspects of like game death because like
Hmm.
one the developer can kill the game themselves even if there are still less than 10 people who want to play it, right? Because I guess the way we actually have to look at it is from the developer's point of view, because you have to ask yourself as like the question as like, what do I need my player base to be for me to continue keeping these servers open?
Mm.
You know, like if we look at this from the
Like what?
player point of view, it might be too subjective.
Yeah, I get you. Because like from the developer point of view, is like how much people do I need to play so I could still pay to keep these servers up?
Up, yeah.
But then again, like again, that kind of changes. Because let's say a game has in-game currency, right?
Hmm.
And that you purchase with real money, and someone just spends like a shit ton of money. Like
Right.
one person just they really love this game, so they just spend like thousands of dollars per month on that
Or
game.
like that one guy in China, whatever, who spent like $1
Yeah,
million
who spend like a
building his
million.
character.
Yeah, like that. Like those type of players, because they exist. It's
Right.
not like they don't exist, right?
They're real people, yeah.
Yeah.
I
So
wish I was one of them.
you wish you were.
I wish I had the money to spend like that. I mean, damn, if you
If you
got $1
had the
million
money to
to
spend
spend on
like
a
that,
character.
just PayPal me that money instead of buying. It's,
But it's a good use.
yeah. Don't worry, I'll spend it on a character probably.
Oh
Yeah,
man.
but like there are those people, right? So
Right.
if there's one of those people playing the game that keeps it alive, then we can't definitively say that okay, this game has less than 10 players, then it's dead. Because there's that one guy keeping the servers alive.
Who's like the sole reason for why it's
I mean, if
alive.
he is gone, then yeah, the developers are to say, well, okay, well, we lost our one hope. Game is dead. I mean, who knows? That
Right.
could have been the case with Among Us. There's like one guy just kept buying pets. He's just buy like a whole
I
lot
mean,
of
it's
pets.
possible, like,
Cause like
because it really is a case of like, I mean, average players in Among Us in November 2018 was 2.3. You can't play a game with 2.3 people.
how do they have servers? Unless they were doing like what do you call it? Like peer to peer?
Yeah, and I'm not sure if they were. Like, I mean,
Yeah, and like
I doubt that they were.
bro, you know who that was? That
Hmm.
was two of the five developers. It has to be. Like it has to be. Because you can't
I
start an
mean,
Among Us game with two players, right?
yeah, like although like peak players was 19, and then like it's really impressive how things. I mean, it's probably one of the cases where it's like they were like, okay, we'll keep these servers open. Like we've kind of created enough of a budget where it's like, all right, we'll keep these servers open for like 3, 4, 5 years, and then if it's like if there's nothing after that, yeah, and it could be a case of like they literally made it to play with their friends, and they were just like, oh, we might as well just publish this, and so it's like they were the ones who were playing it, the developers and their friends and family and
Mm.
so on, um, but so it's like I don't know. I get like it's defining what a dead game is way more complicated than I initially thought it was gonna be.
Yeah,
Like I
and
knew it was gonna be complicated, but
I definitely have to disagree with anyone who would say that just because they would say just because like the player number is lower than like insert popular game here, that the game is dead. Like you see a lot of people say that like when like for example when Apex came out, there were a lot of people saying, oh, Fortnite is dead now. And then like
yeah,
when uh this next one, Warzone came out, people was like, oh, Apex is dead now. Or like
yeah,
when Valorant come out, well, like not even when it came out, it was like when people were just talking about when it was Project A. It's like
yeah.
Overwatch is dead now.
Overwatch is dead. Yeah, yeah.
And
Even we spoke about that on one of our episodes.
yeah, and I feel like a lot of the time people just say that because the people that they play with are no longer around in the game. So like
Right.
and in addition to like the friends that they used to play the game with are no longer playing the game, they don't enjoy the game anymore, so they say it's dead. And
It's
that's just not how it works. Like the game isn't
Right.
there just because you don't enjoy it anymore. Uh,
True.
the game isn't there just because it doesn't have as much players as Fortnite or COD. That is no, the game is still very much alive. So
And that's the funny thing, like, for example, like, with Fortnite, there's a lot of people who, again, I know played Fortnite. I played Fortnite myself at one point, and as other games started to come out, like Apex, like Warzone, they made those same comments. You're like, "Oh, Fortnite's dead." And it's like, Fortnite probably has a bigger player base than the game you're playing combined, you
yeah,
know? So
yeah.
it's like, you really can't call a
No,
game
you
de
can't.
it's very hard to call a game dead.
And I
Although,
hate it
we do have a
because
list.
yeah.
But sorry, continue.
No, I hate that that they're doing that. And I know a lot of people say it like jokingly or like for memes and stuff, but I don't like that because like I'm someone that actually plays a
A dead
dead
game.
and dying game. It's like I know what
Right.
it's like. Like think back to a game like Overwatch, right? Like I use now that example a lot because that's the game that we play a lot.
Yeah, we play
Like
somewhat regularly.
you have a lot of playtime in Overwatch, which means that you have a lot of memories and experiences in Overwatch,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
And like even now, you would still want to play Overwatch just for old time's sake. It's not like you don't get the same amount of enjoyment that you used to, but you'll still play it
Yeah,
just for old time's sake, right?
yeah, for sure.
Imagine if you couldn't do that. That's what
Ah,
a dead game is.
yeah.
And that's like the experience that I have with the games that I used to play. There's sometimes like I would open up Dirty Bomb and it's just like, all right, well, there just isn't any servers right now, so I can't play. And it's like that's a game that's dying. I won't declare it dead yet since like there's still like a few hundred people that's still playing it.
Right.
But there are like those games are dead. Like and that's why
There are games that
I
you actually can't really
you
get
can't
back.
play it and you can't like relive
Yeah.
those like moments that you had other than like watching it through like whatever footage that's around. And that's why I don't like when people like just say a game is dead because it's like not to get to like too mushy or emotional or anything like that. But that's like it's like this is something that you had like a lot of experiences with. Like there's a lot of sentimental attachment to
Right.
video games, right?
Of course.
It's you know what a perfect example would be? Like imagine like one of your old like your old Game Boy or something like that, right?
Mhm.
Like I think you have a 3DS or like a
Just a
DS.
regular DS.
You have a
I've
DS, right?
I'm actually sitting over on the shelf, right? Like,
Like
it's
does
funny.
it
I
work?
can't get rid. They do work, like, and I can't get rid of like a lot of the times. It's like I think about some of like my old systems, and it's like, oh, I could scrap it. I could, but it's like, no, I can't do that. Like,
It's because
even
you
my
have that
PS3 has been a
sentimental attachment.
brick.
Even
Exactly.
even if like you don't want to play the game, and even if you know that you're probably never gonna play it again, you still want to know that it's there.
Yeah. 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 No, that's. I actually think that right there should be the actual definition, not this like kind of like sarcastic definition that we oftentimes might hear or give. Like we can definitely have like the meme definition of like kind of like, oh, Fortnite's a dead, because nobody I know plays it anymore.
Mm.
But I think that we really should reserve, the real meaning for that game because again, this has been a debated topic before, saying like a dead game is less than 10,000 players or a dead game is less than 1,000 players. A dead game should be a game that you can literally no longer play,
Yeah,
you know?
yeah. That's.
So,
I think that should be the definition. Like, there's no way for you to play this game anymore, so it's dead.
yeah. Yeah. I think that is what the term dead game really should be. And, like doing some like very basic preliminary research on this topic, I tried to find a list of dead games and you could actually show that like pull it up right now. I found this forum, like shout out, I'll find the link. Shout out to the dude who came up with this, but he came up with this like Google Docs like a spreadsheet of of this list of like games, and it's kind of like a crowdsourced list where they list the game, they list the consoles, and then they list like its status, right?
Mm.
And there's some like games in there, like, and they list also like the reason it might be dead. For example, like Battlefield 2, the PC version, or I guess it's only on PC. Like I'm seeing consoles that says PC.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Battlefield 2, and it says dead multiplayer, and it was a major release. I like the fact that they have like all of these different, I guess, like information points here, because it's kind of very like vital. Because, for example, something like this game Hoverboard ASDF, which is an indie game, right? The status is dead, and that's probably a game you literally can't get access to anymore, because whether it be because the developer just didn't make enough money off of it and it just made no sense to keep the servers up. So it's like whoever played that game and really did enjoy it, they actually can't get back into that game now.
Yep.
And whereas something like Battlefield 2, that's owned by EA and it was a major release, technically at any point EA could just open the servers back. Like there's really nothing stopping them from doing it, other than the fact that, well, there's updated games now, right?
Yeah. There's like Battlefield 1 and Battlefield. It's stupid saying that
Battlefield
Battlefield.
5
It's stupid saying
one
that Battlefield 1 is the new.
is newer than Battlefield 2, right?
Yeah.
So and then you also have certain games that are limited functionality and so on. Like for example, one of the original World of Warcraft is apparently at risk. Like there's still private servers, but it's really not the type of game that you can easily get back into now.
Well,
And World of Warcraft
they
has been
did.
around.
Blizzard did like re-release classic World of Warcraft recently, a few months. I don't know if
True. I don't know if it's
that was permanent or if it was like a temporary thing though.
No, it's probably like I would say they probably did that permanently. There's no way that, because like the WoW community was pretty serious with
Yeah.
with their games.
Yeah.
So, but there's like, this is a pretty cool list, I think. Like I'm seeing down at the bottom, you have Assassin's Creed Revelations, Assassin's Creed Brotherhood, Assassin's Creed 4 Black Flag, and like all of these are like at-risk multiplayers and stuff. So it's like a lot of these games, they might not be dead. And again, this list is also pretty old.
Yeah, they're
like
old
I think
though.
this was
Yeah.
started in 2016. So who knows when last this was even updated. But either way, shout out to to whoever put this together. Like this has really kind of like helped at least identify some of the games that I was thinking about.
Well,
Because like when you really start thinking about it, it's like, damn, like what game did I used to play that's a dead game? And when I think about it, there's not very many multiplayer games that I used to play,
yeah. Well, like
So
perfect example, like the game I was talking about, Black Flag Retribution.
mhm.
It's on the list as at-risk game, so I guess this list is kind of old because the
Again,
game is
this list is old, yeah.
the game is definitely dead now.
So it's just interesting how, over time we can lose some of these things, what is it? It's a fleeting memory.
And we got a F in the chat. F in the chat for the dead games.
F in the chat for the dead games that, we all got one,
Yeah.
somewhere in our memory there.
I mean, like there may be some lucky people that don't have any.
They gonna have some. They gonna have some just now. Don't worry.
Right?
Eventually, I think if you play video games long enough, there's gonna be a game that you like, and if you play a wide variety of video games, I should say, there's gonna be a game that you like, that you played, that will die.
And on that somber note.
Oh man, everything dies at the end of the day.
Everything dies eventually.
eventually, I'm sure Reaper likes that, Reaper from Overwatch. I'm sure he's very enthusiastic about that.
Yeah, he's just waiting for Overwatch to die. I mean, that's his whole thing, right? That's his
Funny thing
whole
is, he himself can't really die though, right?
Yeah. Well, like again, on that somber note, thank you guys for listening. Hopefully, it's been interesting. Just remember, we're not scientists, we're not engineers. Like, clearly, we have no facts to back up the numbers.
Very little facts.
We're just a couple of gamers that talk tech. All right, peace.
Peace.